Learnex community. Welcome to this week's edition of Feedback Learnex, Death in Different Cultures and Religions. For Western culture, the issue of death is more complicated because it encourages the concept of clinging, of growing up with the idea of forever. Not to mention death, which makes it difficult to carry dwells in a healthy way. In other cultures, since childhood, the theme of death is so present in rites, in life itself, that it is understood that it is part of it and it is perfectly integrated. We are born, we grow up, and we die. It is normalized and accepted. So let's take a look at some cultures and religions and what their take is on death. Mexico. Mexican society came into violent contact with Christianity in the 16th century, and Catholicism prevailed, replacing what before the arrival of the conquerors were their deities. In 16th century Mexico, native symbols were hopelessly combined with Catholic ones. A good example of this is the Mexican Day of the Dead. Archaeology has helped to know that the practice of offering and that the dead did not leave alone was something common for thousands of years in different pre-Hispanic societies. Day of the Dead in Mexico. Offerings and altars are very frequent, and that day, known in Spain as the Day of the Dead on November 1st, and in the Aztec calendar celebrated in July to August. In Mexico, it is celebrated in a very different way. The day is a whole party in the country, and incredible altars to the dead can be found throughout Mexico, made by incredibly talented artists. Africa. The Lumbaloo made reference to both the chants of the dead person and the rite of passage. In the Lumbaloo, people sing, cry, dance frantically, and praise the dead who in that moment are present. The candle lasts 9 days, and the most important is the last. In the Lumbaloo, everything radiates Africanness. If the deceased is well honored with this rite, they manage to cross that border into the world of the dead, and they do not stay in the family home. The Lumbaloo maintains solidarity and community identity as its main idea. These types of rites of passage or transition vary from one culture to another, but they serve the same purpose, to reinforce group bonds. And in this, societies are also reinforced in life thanks to death, a vital experience that, although it is difficult for many to accept, is inevitable and necessary. Buddhism. In Eastern cultures that practice Buddhism, life does not end with death. The person is reincarnated in another life and must learn in each life lessons to improve until becoming a pure spiritual being, which has been perfected through these different lives. According to the Buddhist view, life is eternal. Since it goes through successive incarnations, death is not considered so much the cessation of an existence as the beginning of a new one. For Buddhists, the phenomenon of transmigration is obvious, so death is necessary. As we die, we can appreciate the wonder of life. To speak of the ideal way of dying, one must speak of the ideal way of living. Going through the process of death in a satisfactory way depends on the constant efforts that are made during life to accumulate good causes, to contribute to the happiness of others, and to strengthen the foundation of goodness and humanity in the deepest of our lives. Buddhism guarantees that those who sincerely practice will approach death in a state of complete satisfaction. Hinduism. The Hindus' concern is not death. For them, death is not the enemy. From birth, death for them is not a term. They are going to be reborn in another place, and the important thing is to interrupt the chain of rebirths. He has always belonged to eternity. He is a manifestation of the divine. From the moment he was born, he is a being strange to the world. It already has a pre-existence. It has already existed in some way. And when it disappears, there is no passage from being to nothing. If the Westerner goes after immortality and wishes to avoid death that anguishes him, a Hindu person, on the other hand, seeks to liberate himself from life, to escape to earthly existence. He considers his social, historical existence as a negation of being, and his goal is to renounce it. Existence is for him the absence of reality and non-affirmation of what is and what becomes. In the religious thought of Hinduism, death consists in the union of the individual soul with the universal soul. So it is believed that when dying, one passes not to another life, like the one we know on earth, but to another form of existence, which is essentially spiritual. According to Hinduism, each person lives many lives throughout their existence. This eternal cycle of reincarnations is called samsara. When one dies, his soul is reborn, reincarnated in another body. What happens to you in each life is the result of previous lives. That is, one will reincarnate in a good body if in his previous life he has behaved according to his duties in life or dharma. If they are good, it will reincarnate in a higher life form. What you do good makes you good, and what you do bad makes you bad. Tibet. Among Tibetans, their attitudes towards death and dying are devoid of the general taboo that we find in the West. There, they meet death with respect and veneration, and the existence of death becomes a stimulant for the development of man. This growth is emphasized throughout life, and especially when the person is dying. That's it for this week's edition of Feedback Learnex. We hope you enjoyed this trip around different cultures and places and how death is viewed by each one. See you next week, Thursday night at 9:15 p.m.